If y'all can hear me. I'm Jackson Osborne with the Bluegrass Trust for Historic Preservation, and welcome to our July detour of Elmside, Elmwood, now the offices of Integrity Architecture, who have been so kind as to open this up to us for our detour. It's great to see so many of you made it out here, especially with the rain that came down. Got a lot of supporters and community members. Thank you so much for all that you do. If you don't know, the Bluegrass Trust doesn't receive any federal or state funding. Our detour is always free and open to the public, so you being here and your support means the world to us. I won't go on much longer because this house has so much history that we want to get in there. So I'm going to turn this over to Joe Ransek of Integrity Architecture, but I also want to let you know that at the end of our tour, please stick around because Eric Brooks of Ashland, the Henry Clay estate, has some history about the home and its relation to Henry Clay. Joe, thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Wow, we got a great turnout. This is fantastic. I appreciate everybody coming out. A couple of things before, and we're going to try to get inside relatively quickly. I know everybody's muggy. Just a couple of things. I am not a historian. We have done our best, and over the few years we have been here to try to collect little bits and parts of history over the years, and have built quite a timeline. It is a very rich tapestry of life that has existed within this house. I do very quickly want to touch on just some of the work that we have done, so that we can focus more, I hope, on more of the historical elements. So we came into the house only a few years ago, and very quickly it was vitally important to us, given the nature of this home, that we preserve as much of the character as we possibly could. This is a very interesting case study for us. For those of you who may or may not be familiar, this house, while it is a part of the National Register of Historic Places, it does not actually sit locally under the care of historic preservation. So it does not, over the years, it has not been subjected to a lot of the rigid requirements in upkeep and when you renovate it, what types of things you have to go in to be faithful to the historic elements. So as we go, we'll talk about some of the pros and cons of that, and there are a little bit of both. So very quickly, of general history, the house, as Jackson mentioned, goes by many names. We choose to go by Elmwood. That's the owner, who's not us. The owner of the home is a client of ours, who interestingly is a resident, owns Rose Hill, which is another historic home. I don't think he even realized when he bought this place in the wake of COVID that the families were one and the same. So in the mid-1800s, William Moses Brand and his family built the home. He is the son of John Brand, who built Rose Hill. What makes them kind of notable is they actually, I like to know this kind of stuff, they became a pretty prominent family. They invented a way to rapidly produce or manufacture hemp bags, which in that time would have been used for quite a lot, as you can imagine. Over the years, the daughter of the owner ended up getting married to the daughter of the president of Transylvania College. So this really was kind of a connected family in a spot in town where there was a lot happening. And I want to kind of use that as an opportunity to say the real, I would say, essence of this house, if you could kind of summarize it in one sort of characteristic, is it was built for entertainment. It was built for society, high society, and you will see, I hope, kind of echoes of that over periods of time and multiple owners. The house ended up having a fire around the turn of the century or sometime just before that, and the second owners, the Barrows, who was a local surgeon, bought the house and turned it from a classic kind of Greek revival home into this sort of neo-Greek revival that was popular at the time, a little bit more modernized version of the classic Greek revival. And they did a lot of the improvements that you'll see now. Of course, over time, as we get through, you'll start to see layer upon layer of additional years and owners and history. But what still remains, and what we wanted to make sure we maintained, was, again, that character and that history. So, again, tying it all the way back to our firm, while we are an architectural firm, we do designs. I hope what becomes evident in our work is that we're more of a reflection of our clients. And so we don't really have a specific style or way we do things. And in doing so, we wanted to be as lean to what we did to the building as possible. What we didn't have all the money required that you could imagine this house might have needed. There's lots of work that still needs to happen. But what we did is effectively removed a lot of the kind of 30 years worth of different lighting styles. We had to get data lines in for internet, things like that. The power had to be upgraded. But we touched no moldings. We resanded the floors, encapsulated the walls with a historic palette of paint so that we could try again to touch as little as we could. So after really quickly after the Barrows, the house eventually was taken ownership by, and this is what Jackson was referring to, and I would encourage you again to talk to Mr. Brooks during or after the tour, was acquired by Lucretia Simpson, who's the great-granddaughter of Henry Clay. So it really did maintain a presence as a major fixture within the community, as a happening place to be. Trying to think of anything that we need to cover while we're outside. Are there any questions in general about the earliest owners? Yes.
What about the owners that sold it? The diocese?
Oh, yes. So I'll take you through that. So a couple of there's a little bit of a gap between the Simpson family and the family, and I'm suddenly blanking on the name. The owners in the mid-70s are the family that put this house on the National Register of Historic Places. They had a pretty detailed account of the interior conditions and a lot of the exterior work. After them, a woman named Ann Holt purchased the home in the 80s, and she was somewhat of a socialite, as we have come to understand. It was a residence at one time. There was some offices in it. Eventually, and thank you for bringing it up, the Archdiocese of the Episcopal Church took it over, had their offices here, and it was them who the current owner purchased the house from. So there was a few years of gap in there where it sort of sat with no occupation, I believe. But in 2022, in February, is when we moved in and completed most of our renovation work. So, great question. Any other questions about just kind of basic run-up history? We'll cover a lot more details as we go in. There's a lot more there to kind of sink your teeth into.
What year was the original construction?
The best we can tell, we get a lot of circa 1840s. There is some activity on or near the site prior to that in the couple of decades beforehand. That would have been around the time that Rose Hill was built. So I imagine the family was very active in this general vicinity. Rose Hill is actually just a few blocks that way and that way from this house. I do know that as of the 1976 application for the National Register, that effectively the bulk of the property would have extended at least up until almost those houses over there and gone all the way to 5th Street. The house would have had a couple of small outbuildings, but there was a large carriage house that is much closer to 5th Street and would have faced this direction. It no longer survives. We can almost see it kind of a hole where it might have sat. And at the time of that application, there was one home in between here and there. So now, of course, we've got several. Great question.
Yeah, just to add to that, so William Moses Brand bought 12 acres in 1830. That was 4 outlots. So this was before MLK was even laid as the street.
Yes.
All the way up to 5th.
Yes.
Love it.
All right. Any other questions, a couple of details I could offer you from the outside. The mosaic floor, we've obviously got some condition things. I'll point some of the things out as we go around. This thing has gone through several iterations and renovations over the course just since 1976. Predominantly the modernization by inclusion of sprinkler systems, ADA access, which I apologize. I do want to remind everybody our elevator is out of order. Very sorry, this just happened very recently, so we're working on that. But we were, aside from those things added, along with larger restrooms, things like the basement, the foundation walls were supported and underpinned, and now we have what is a far more watertight condition than what we had inherited. Any other questions? All right. One thing as we go through here, this is, as best I can tell, a door that would have been likely not original to the 1905 renovation. It could have been from the Simpson renovation. This is a golden oak door. I do want to point out, I would not close it until everyone's through. When we acquired or moved into the home, we had all the locks rekeyed, and Grotz had no clue how to deal with this lock. It is a historic lock, and I'm not kidding, I can't bear to take anything out. So we're trying to keep it and work with it as best we can, but we technically use the old porte-cochere side door as our primary entrance now. So, all right, let's go inside.
Come on in.
Avoiding some of the current historic preservation requirements. There can be good and bad associated with that. One argument could be made that if you make the barrier really, really high on quality or certain materials, then that discourages purchases and investments. And we've seen that as architects, we've seen that. But at the same time, I would point out things like vinyl windows. You know, I really wish there were no vinyl windows in here. We inherited those. And I'll point out the only things that we have done now that you're kind of able to see it, we resealed the floor. So this is, would have been woodwork. I don't know to what date, but at least to 1905 is my guess. We did the lighting. The lighting spanned across probably four decades, and it just was awful and didn't seem to have much historic value. So we replaced it with the more modern and complementary, or I would say better juxtaposition, to highlight the difference between what we did and subtle things that we did versus what was original. As I mentioned, there's lots that we're going to continue to do. It's going to take years. It's going to take our stewardship, of course, the owner and his gracious involvement in continuing to invest in the building to see some of these renovations come to light. But we're in it for the long haul. One of the things we did to try to help do that, for instance, you can imagine what a paint bill might be on a job like this, to do the walls and then do a separate trim. That, my brain started spinning, so we just made the executive call to pick a single sheen for everything, and tried to get it so that it highlighted just enough of the details that they would stand out. All right. Let's see. I want to point out a couple of things. And I only learned this recently. This is called Lincrusta. It is a pressed board manufactured material. It's very thin. It almost looks like cardboard. And if we make it, those of you brave enough to wander all the way up to the third floor, you can actually, there's a little mechanical room, an unfortunately placed mechanical room, that maintains the actual non-painted color of these. So most all this was all covered up anyway when we moved in, and we were thankful to maintain some of that. So when we go into here, I printed out a few floor plans that actually was the working floor plans we used to try to figure out where our desks and stuff were going to go. I've tried to use some of the historic documents to map out what rooms were what originally. And I'll kind of, since we're all kind of generally in the same vicinity, this is the I would say the most meat of the house exists right here. This would have been back to this wall, the original box of the house, the original Greek box. The addition.
Where the party begins?
I'm sorry?
Is this where the party begins?
Yeah, I think so. I believe so. So this would have been set up very much like a classic Greek home. So you would have had the grand hall. Likely this was added much later. This typically might have been a more ornate, maybe a semicircular type of stair. You'll notice if we get out to the back side, there's some gigantic columns, 2-story high. That would have likely been maybe a small portico off the back or something like that. But in that time, there had been additions and second floor porches and things added. And I want to be clear again, when we came in, one of the first things we wanted to do was try to understand the evolution of the work. It was clear not everything's original, not everything happened at once. And when you walk back here into this back hallway, all that exists back there now is the elevator, the men's and women's restrooms, and the egress stair, the fire stair. That's pretty much it. There's a small room we use as the copy room. And initially we kind of assumed, well, sometime in the mid part of the century, when fire code started to really become more prevalent, somebody did the renovation and put all this stuff out here so that we could actually use it in a modern way. But that's not really true. This was in part of the 1905 edition, which is why the brickwork looks so similar to some of the other brickwork, and would have been part of the back of house operations, staff spaces, the kitchen would have been back there, and some of those supporting spaces, pantries and things like that. Stairs did already exist. We also know, and I've found competing evidence on this, that it was claimed that some famous Italian plasterers were brought in to handle the ceiling. And as you look at the ceiling and some of the trims, for those of you, and I'm an architect, I'm not even that good at picking out and teasing out styles, but there's a pretty rich amalgam of different styles and different approaches that are all layered and layered on top of one another. Interestingly, while I just assumed that this was hand troweled on, in this room back here, when we moved in, there was a big section of the ceiling that was coming down. And where I would have expected to see something more like a traditional lath board or scree board that would have had that plaster on it, it was a burlap type of sheet texture. I don't know a lot of the historical methods for plaster work, but considering some of the products that existed in here and some of the work that the early renovators would have done, it wouldn't surprise me that there would have been some combination of a new product that kind of allowed that work to be speedier, but I don't want to make assumptions either. Over here, one of the earliest renovation projects that would have happened in the early 1900s when the Barrows took over is this wall would have been blown out between these two rooms, again in the interest of entertainment. So just adding additional capacity. We're not sure, we think there's likely some piece of steel in that archway as the structural mechanism, but we're not about to cut it open to find out. So far, as you can imagine, this thing has existed here for quite some time. Most of the cracks every crack that I'm aware of that you can see was here when we got here. I don't expect it to move a tremendous amount, but it's showing its age for sure. Okay, a couple of other things. Someone had asked a question. I do want to point out the mirrors. Do not know the time frame of them, but the mirrors in both spaces and the mantles, all of it, again, with the trim, were all in place when we came in. We took out 2 mirrors that existed between these windows and doors. And that was so that, and this was, I'll come back to our company and kind of how we hope to occupy space with a little footprint. We worked with Arts Connect to bring in, with their program, to bring in art by local artists. So just to give Ms. Kate Savage a small plug, if you see any of the art on the walls and you like it, there's actually a price tag and a name on it. That's all local, and we don't have nothing to do with it, but I'm happy to put you in touch with her if you happen to like something. Okay.
Wouldn't this have
Yes.
been originally not been painted? Do you have any photos?
Correct. We do have some photos. We have a handful that we can pull up, and we can't squeeze everybody everywhere, but we'll try to pull them up and cycle them on the TV and here. That's where the floor plans are. So I would encourage you to, at some point, try to drift into each of the rooms and see those. But no, what we understand from, and I'm coming back to my application for the National Register of Historic Places, the wood would have been unpainted. These, and again, you'll see there's a lot of deep reds and things like that, and browns in the original palette. We expect that this and a lot of the moldings, maybe not all, we can't confirm, but many of the moldings would have been gilt in gold, which would have complemented very, very well with that deep scarlet oxblood type color. Okay, so as we move around, a couple of things I want to point out. I would take a moment to take a look at the window flanked by stained glass, opalescent glass, in that room. That is a kind of an interesting window type where it's actually a double sash, double hung window, but you can open the bottom component. It only drops down to about your knee height, and then you can open these little doors, and that double hung becomes kind of an odd door that you can walk out onto. Not sure what that small porch is. It's about 3 feet off the ground. I like to think it was some sort of smoking porch or herb porch or something for somebody to just step outside briefly. That type of window is actually what was in the position of these two back doors on both floors. Unfortunately, those do not meet code, so we couldn't maintain those, and most of them are not operable, including that one. Again, please don't ask me to take that window out. I couldn't bear it. It's the only one left that's like that. I can tell you that in addition to knocking some of these walls out, you'll see a similar application of that in this room, which is the original dining room, sitting room, library, drawing room, parlor. The bay windows would have been added after that fact too. Same thing in here. So they would not have been there originally prior to the turn of the century. It is very interesting, again, when you walk into it and you kind of assume, why would you do that? It's just sort of an odd detail. We love it. We turned it into a small little scrum space and gathering space. Okay. I know I'm firing across everything. Any questions?
Yeah, I
Right
assume
now.
when you moved into the diocese and put in the fire suppression system, you didn't rip up the walls and do that yourself.
We did not do that. I cannot say for certain. I cannot say for certain when that would have happened. That's a possible likelihood. That's possibly the most likely situation. But we do know there were a couple of owners in between, between Miss Ann Holt and the diocese. So it could have been in any of those. We haven't dug into kind of permit applications or anything like that to determine it, but we do know it was later. Yes, sir.
What's the relation between the pattern siding there and what you see in old restaurants and buildings, businesses that have the tin-type ceilings?
That's a great question. I think that, and I'm not going to pretend to be the end-all expert on detail like that, but I do know that this was meant to complement some of the more Greek elements from the original house. But again, I know enough and recognize enough that when you put them all together, they don't all go together, right? They're sort of, and what I love and I find the most charming is that very nature. is you can sort of see, if you pay attention to it long enough, you can see the time element associated with the home. And I hope that that's all that we've done is to the space, and will continue to do, is to largely carry this character through and only add that little touch to this moment in time.
What kind of wood is this?
That is a great question. I cannot confirm. I do know that there was a lot of mahogany in the building, but there have been so many changes in some of the doors and slabs and some of the woodwork that I wouldn't necessarily speculate. If there are any woodworkers, I would definitely welcome a good opinion on that, though. Okay. I might, where's Jackson?
I'm right here.
Okay, I might encourage, should we do a brief little break to just kind
I
of
think
mingle
so.
around? Before we do that, as I just said that, I do want to point out what we did do back here, and trying to, budget permitting, try to honor the history of the home. This would have been the dining room. You'll see a big fancy bookcase in it that would have been taken out of the probably original kitchen, again, the back of house section, before it was ADA compliant. So there wouldn't have been a stair and all this stuff that you'll see back there. So we have turned this into what we're sort of thinking of as, let's call it the butler pantry or the coffee bar. It's our coffee station. We're trying to keep in keeping with what might have been similar to a home style. So even the floor tile, which was completely obliterated by the plotter printer, we had to roll through it. Trying to pull in just some of those historic elements, looking back to the mosaic floor on the outside, which is in desperate need of help, and trying to tie new to old again without overstepping it. You'll be able to walk, and we probably have it locked. It is a sticky door. There's a side access over here to the porch. Would have been a 2-story space. Now it's got a second floor on it. And as you migrate back into the 1905 addition, again, that's where you'll see it is elevator, men's and women's restroom, and the back stair. It's also where we keep our plotter and office supplies and that kind of stuff. So you may poke back there, but that's what, that is the line of demarcation from original core to added space. So with that, yeah, if you want to take a moment before we start to maybe drift upstairs, I might take a moment just to walk around. I'm going to walk around and try to answer any questions you guys might have, and I'll try to pull from some historic details as I'm able.
Oh, yes.
So with that,
There's your hammer mill.
Jackson, which one's Erica?
She is the
He said it was a problematic door, and he just went right out.
This was the dining room. Here you go.
The book might be Extreme Black Swans.
See, I'm just sitting in Alexander, you were young, you thought Alexander had a very significant home in your town, like Glen Mary, it was, Lewinsky, designed,
Is that Thomas?
Thomas Lewinsky.
Thomas Lewinsky. Yeah.
And so it was, it burns, but it's a very significant home.
So there's all in all the record. Nobody will say who any of the architects. But the only record I can find is yes. So I don't know.
Just the ladder.
Let's do the detour.
Just by looking at it. Did you say the fireplaces don't go off? No. Oh my gosh.
Oh, okay, there's a lot. Right back here.
That's where I was. And this is Amy's office.
It looks like a lot of them play with Legos. You don't hurt.
I want to pay for some of this candy.
This makes me think maybe outside kitchen. Not kitchen. The stained glass windows.
Oh, yes, yes.
You couldn't have able to do one time.
Waste of good money.
Yes, a lot.
I love how that old books, because you know, they laid all that behind. Pretty edition around 1970.
Well, that's true.
Trade my office. Just one? Did you see the first room you went in, had the doors that open? Did you hear the description of that one over there? Yeah. It's just like Jacob Village, where you could open those doors and walk out.
On that other side of the house.
Sorry. Oh, wow. That's where it is.
Yeah.
The original store.
I know. Yeah.
Oh. The original, unpainted.
Still that old floor from the 70s.
Oh, I had been in this room now.
Well, this is showing you what the floor was like.
And, oh yeah. But look, 11, 10 left.
Did we do all this? I don't know where this goes.
I never would have guessed an elevator would have been in this building.
Well, it has been out of order just a little bit, and
Yeah.
They're expensive.
so,
Yeah. I know you elevators are expensive.
they were saying
It's not too bad up there.
I'd love to go.
I think now would be a good time for Eric to address the history.
Yes.
Since I didn't go back down here again.
Thank you very much, Jackson. I come to these things from time to time, and I'm always interested. Jackson will put these up, and sometimes it'll say, and this was, you know, the home of a Henry Clay descendant. And I'm like, all right, that one I haven't been to yet. Good. So I was really excited when this one came up. I've heard a lot of stories about this place, but I've never been over here, so I'm glad to finally get to do that. So to go way back, I'm sure that Henry Clay knew the brands. He was a hemp merchant. He made hemp bagging. That was what he did with his hemp. Hemp bagging and hemp rope for the cotton industry. So he and the brands would have worked together. I know that he knew Horace Holly, whom he brought to Lexington to become president of Transylvania University. He was on the board. He was for a little while a professor there, Henry Clay was, but he brought Horace here to be the professor. Horace Holly was a Unitarian minister, which was pretty radical at that time. And that was, it's far left now, it was even further left then. So that was a little rocky, but he brought Horace Holly here, was a good friend of Horace's. I'm sure he knew the daughter that married into the Brand family, so he might well have come to this house in his earliest iteration. I don't know, I can check that, but I would think it fairly likely that he did. Going forward, Henry Clay's daughter Anne marries a man named James Erwin. They lived at what is now Woodland Park. Their house, the Woodlands, stood where the pool is at Woodland Park. So it's gone, which is unfortunate because it was a really cool house. But anyway.
Did you have, UK have a building up where the?
Yes, that was part of UK. That was part of the Kentucky University and Agricultural Mechanical College. That would have been the agricultural portion of that. So that was out of that building. They had a son, James and Ann did, named Eugene Erwin. He married a woman named Josephine Deborah Russell. Her family was the Russell of Russell Cave Road and Mount William Farm.
Wow.
Josephine and Eugene had 4 daughters. Eugene joined the Confederate Army and was killed at Vicksburg. Josephine went down to take care of him when he got sick. I think she was still pregnant with the 4th child, but the 4th child had just been born. That child died during the war. So she had 3 daughters to raise, who were young girls at that time. She came back to her home in Missouri and eventually found that untenable as a Confederate widow and came here to Lexington to be a housekeeper for Henry Clay's youngest child, John. They lived at a house called Ashland on Tate's Creek, which is the church parking lot of the Anglican church across Christ the King.
Yeah.
Really great farmer's market there. Buy vegetables in that market, you're doing it in John's living room. Anyway, so he takes in Josephine and her daughters and sort of raises the daughters. Their eldest daughter, Lula, marries a man named Minor Simpson. This is Lula. She was about 20 years younger than Minor. That's her as a young woman. This is Lula as she looked as a widow when she moved into this house in 1920.
The whole place?
Yes.
The whole place?
Her son and daughter-in-law moved in with her. Their names were Eugene and Marguerite. Eugene and Marguerite lived here for their whole lives. Eugene died first. I think he died in the 60s or 70s, maybe in the 70s. Marguerite stayed here. Eventually, about 1979, she took a fall down that stairwell and injured herself. And her family decided this was not a good idea. And she needed to move out of this big old house and away from the stairwell. So they moved her to an apartment or assisted living, something like that. And when that happened, they then had to deal with the house and its contents. At one time, a large number of Henry Clay items were in this house. That collection moved to the home of Eugene's brother, Henry, who lived on Tates Creek Road. He was the developer of Chevy Chase and built a house about 3 houses up on Tates Creek from Cooper Drive, heading out of town on the, well, what would that be? I'm directionally challenged. I guess it'd be the north side, the side that Ashland is on. That was one of the first houses built over there. So all the Henry Clay stuff goes over there. Most of that is at Ashland. We have all kinds of artifacts that were in this house. I have a newspaper article about this house written in the 50s where they took a reporter on a tour and pointed out all the Henry Clay stuff, and most of it is at Ashland. So you can come to Ashland and see that. They had other family artifacts that were still here. Those were sold by Thompson and Riley auctioneers, and the house was sold. That's the 1983 or 4 sale that you talked about to Ann Holt. The proceeds from those 2 sales became the seed money that became the Donovan Scholars Program at UK. This is how it was funded.
Right on.
I will this Saturday be meeting with Lula's grandson, who is a supporter and former board member at Ashland and someone I've worked with now for over 20 years. He's a really great guy.
I thought that was from.
Well, Herman Donovan is who it's named for. He was president of UK, I think, at the time it was created.
But he wasn't related
The
to
money
this
that
house.
funded it came from this sale.
I see.
So he's told me lots of stories about growing up and coming to visit Aunt Marguerite and Uncle Eugene. We have a cabinet, a bookcase in the study at Ashland that was in this house. And he would come to visit, and they had a candy jar in the corner of it. So occasionally he would sneak in and sneak candy out of the candy jar. And if Marguerite caught him, she picked up Lucretia Clay, that's Henry Clay's wife, riding crop. She got a riding crop, which is now at Ashland on exhibit. And swatting with it. Put the candy back in the candy jar. So we have all sorts of great stories of people coming here and life in this house during that era. And it was apparently a grand house.
The UK president, what was his name?
Herman Donovan. He was a historian and president of UK. I don't remember what his tenure was. But he is the name that is attached to Donovan's college.
That's where the money went. A bunch of us that use that.
So this place has lots of connections to the Clay family. I don't know if any of this woodwork was done by Eugene, but Eugene Simpson was a master woodworker. He reproduced an entire set of dining chairs off of the dining chairs that Henry Clay had in his dining room. We have Henry's dining chairs. The replacement set that he made is still in the family, but they're exactly the same. You can hardly tell them apart. He made a chair for his wife with pliers in the base. I got a photo of it here somewhere. This chair. That's a Eugene product, that chair. He was extremely talented. He may have done some of this mahogany on the stairs. I don't know. I will find out. So anyway, I'm really glad to finally get over here and see this. I'm glad to know it's a good hand.
I want to point out 2 real quick things that you really are going to have to see from the outside. I got several questions about kind of how the 3rd floor evolved. The 3rd floor, as we understand it, was not original pre-1900. They expanded up. And as
For the kids and the slaves.
very likely, at least for the, one of the things that I only have learned in researching this is they think due to positioning, type of windows. They had some entertainment space, maybe a billiard room or something like that upstairs. And if you look at the floor, there's certain floor patterning that might have been leading into that. But you can see really well where that happens. If you go outside and look back up at the pilasters, the columns that go all the way up, there's a kind of a neck molding most of the way up. That, as best we can tell, marks where the original capital of the columns would have been. And the big and nice Greek entablature and some of the smaller windows and lower roof would have existed above that.
Wow.
So in that expansion, they popped up the columns, the capitals, the tops of the columns out there are metal. And interestingly, there's some weird painting that's happened on some of them. If you go look, I didn't know until today that for a very long time, apparently this place was painted gray. So that's why there does seem to be evidence of some paint on the outside as well. The last little thing I'll point out is, I think I forgot to do it. You'll notice on our little sign right there, we do have a cat identifier. There was a cat that showed up at our door. She was apparently original to the neighborhood and then adopted by a family across the street here. And she cannot go a day without coming over. So we have to, because the house is so big, she goes wherever she wants. Her name is Maple. We have to have a little identifier to let everybody know that Maple's inside the house or not. So she doesn't get inside. So if you do see Maple, please rotate over. Oh, there you go. Oh, that's one. She's got food bowls on all 3 floors. So she pretty much has run of the home.
How about that alley back there? Were there slave quarters back there in one corner or something?
So the best I've got, and I know that there are other ones, but the one I've got includes in the application a later site plan. You can kind of see it, and I'm happy to put it out on the conference table or pass it around. It does not, best I can tell, seem to label too many things in a way that I can read. It looks like something similar to the old Sanborn maps or something like that. But it does indicate the property and the carriage house, which existed way back that way towards 5th Street. But they likely have been detached, yes.
If I could add something about John Brand connection. John Brand came from Scotland and was partnered with Wesley Hunt, and he gave some property, this land, to his oldest son, William Moses. And when John Brand retired in 30 or whatever it was, William Moses went and took over the business with his brother-in-law. And his brother-in-law was Eliza McAllister Brand, whose home is Mulberry Line, on the corner of whatever. So Eliza was John Brand's only surviving daughter, brother of William. So William was in business with Edward McAllister, and and then the youngest son, there's a lot of famous homes, I guess I should say, in the family with Rose Hill, and then George Washington Brand, another son, lived in Rose Hill after John Brand died, and then Alexander, his youngest, lived, first John Brand bought him some property for sales on Shannon Run, along with George Washington, but then he built the home Glengarry or Cane Run out on Newtown Pike. Very beautiful home to Lewinsky, and so he built that in 1853. That's where, and I'm descended from Alexander, so I'm part of the Brand family.
We're honored.
So anyway, and speaking on behalf of the Brands, but anyway, homes are significant homes in that family. This home, Elmwood, Rose Hill, the Matthew Kennedy home, where Mulberry Line is now. So.
In other words, we need a period reality show. This is a tiny but very influential little community of people that this house is a part of, and I'm not to brag, but we've worked it now, so I'm excited to be here.
And I'm gonna add, because this is my wife talking, she's the researcher. We wrote a book in 2020 called Brand of Bluegrass.
Oh, cool.
And if you're interested in more history about the Brand family and Lexington at that point, It's available at Black Swan, or you can order it on Lulu Press.
Self-published.
Yeah, so.
So is it used at Black Swan? Most
Yes,
of
it
it?
was you, he carries it there.
Yeah, okay. Cool. That's neat.
And the name of the book again?
A Brand of the Bluegrass.
So she's the great-grandfather of Black
Thank you.
All right.
Well,
Okay, you'd ask me that. It's this way on Limestone. It's 1 or 2 blocks north and 1 block over, or a couple blocks over. You'll know it. It's a.
Have we done a tour of Rose Hill?
It is a buttercream yellow.
Oh, okay, I hope so.
So Jackson, what have you got in store next week?
I'll get you in 1 sec. All right, everybody. Well, we'd like to give a special thanks again to Integrity Architecture. Joe, this has been an amazing open house. We appreciate the adaptive reuse and your focus on historic preservation and being a active member of this community. Eric, thank you for making the trek down here for us. And I'd like to invite all of you to our next detour in August. It's going to be at Georgetown College, so we're going to go back to school.
All right, Scholar?